دار السلام ويهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Gaza Massacre. I'm your host Fuad Muhammad. We're coming to the end of the 20th day of the attacks, the brutal attacks of a nation that believes in terrorism, that is Israel. They're continuing their attacks on the poor and innocent people of Gaza, on civilians, and of course the death toll is nearing 1,000, 50% of which are women and children. Of course, the attack started on December 27th, and it's still continuing, and the ground incursion started on January 3rd, and it's still continuing. They're using all sorts of weapons that are against the international law, against the Geneva Convention. Well, today on Gaza Massacre, we're taking a new look at the war, the technical. We're going to study what Israel is doing technically in the war, what are they using, what are their military might, and we'll look at the poor Palestinian people who are not able to even stand up or to defend themselves. But before I go into the episode, I would just like to read some of the statistics of the military aid that Israel is receiving from the United States of America and are continuing to receive it. And it says that Israel, from the period 2001 to 2006, has received over $2 million in spare parts for its fighter jets, 100 million for its helicopters, 186 million gallons of aviation fuel, $1.9 billion worth of naval combat ships to Israel, $1.3 billion contract to transfer the TOW Hellfire and bunker buster missiles. Boeing also received a contract of $77 million to transfer 1,000 of these bombs. And of course, 300 million in tank components, 150 million in night vision goggles and scopes. Israel is one of the most powerful military might in the Middle East, and they're taking advantage of a population who can not even barely afford to breathe fresh air. Well, to talk more about the technical aspects of the war, we have with us Dr. Yusuf Mazhar. He's the former Deputy Minister of Industry of Egypt. He's won several awards. One is the Republic Award for Science and Arts in Egypt, and of course the Legion of Honor from France for his work on transfer in technology. Thank you for being with us. It's quite another sad day in what is happening in Gaza.
Thank you for asking me.
Everyone is talking about the role of Hamas,
Yes.
the role of UN, the role of Israel, the
Yes.
role of the Arab, but we're going to take a new perspective in this episode. We're going to talk about how disadvantageous and the advantage Israel is taking of the Palestinian by their military might. Can you just give us a brief background of what are the military might, or what is the military might of Israel?
Yes, well, of course, when we talk about subjects which are bound by a lot of secrecy, and of course you mentioned some very interesting figures, but behind these figures there's a lot of stories and details. And anybody who talks about this, of course, talks about the, let's say, the outside story inside, because the rest is all in the chapter of military secrets.
Mm-hmm.
But let me say one thing, that out of all the list that you mentioned now, which is a very carefully prepared list, I would like to just make two comments, just
Okay.
to see whether this is the military might that can be aimed at a small population in an enclaved area.
Yes.
I mean, when we talk about rockets, bunker penetrating rockets, there are no real bunker situations or buildings in Gaza. So using bombs of this form, let's put it aside, it would not be a direct let's say advantage. But the goggles, the night fighting goggles, which are used to distinguish let's say, images or persons in night fighting. We suffered during one of the Israel that this was available on the Israeli side and not on the Egyptian tank side at one of the very early stages, and they could find out the silhouettes of the tanks from the heat coming out of the engines. So this might be an advantage in the street fighting, no doubt.
Yes.
But let me say, apart from this, there are many other things we can put aside, and the rest, of course, is what is needed for a campaign like this.
Yes.
Let me say also that Israel is a country that is not only getting aid, it has managed to put together a formidable military production industry.
Yes.
And years back we looked at, because the United States gave Egypt and Israel the chance to deliver subcontract back to the United States. And I'm afraid at that time Israel made a very big gain on this. And the exports back to the States. So it's not all aid, it's also business.
Yes.
That many of the components are being made there and sent back. Of course, these are American-based companies. So we're talking not of a military might only, we're talking of an industrial outsourcing location in that part of the world. And that makes it even more of a formidable opponent.
Yes.
Now, let us look at what's happening now. First, the bombardment.
Yes.
The excuse, of course, is the firing of rockets by the Palestinians.
Of course, this happened after the siege for so many months.
Of course. I mean, it's obvious that this is not a plausible excuse whatsoever. You don't bombard a whole region because there are some rocket firing. So I will start by looking at the history of the Palestinian rocket effort, which might be interesting for us. I don't think anybody is disclosing any secrets because this is available. The Palestinians in Gaza, being completely closed, needed something to fight with. I mean, they are being all the time attacked. They need something. They need something in their hands.
Yes, just for their voice to be heard as well.
Yes, I mean, some sort of resistance. I mean, why should these people be deprived of resistance when the French were not blamed for the resistance against the German occupation of Paris? The Free French in that time, everybody was clapping their hands. So why do we make a fuss of people who are trying to defend their country? Completely unfair.
And then not only not helping them or defending them, but calling them terrorists as well.
Yes, exactly. And if I compare it with France, there was no bombardment of Paris. This is a Free French trying to get their independence, getting the German occupation out, and there was what was happening at the moment.
They were seen as heroes in the end.
No, you see, it's. I mean, I will put aside all these arguments that are political. Only some people believe them because they want to believe them. So that's out. Let us look at the efforts the Palestinians made. They started very simply. It's completely closed, this area. So they started importing or getting pipes using a very simple explosive, which comes out of fertilizers. So it's not a real explosive. Made rockets whose range was only 13 kilometers. And they started that way. So look at the unfairness of somebody trying to defend himself and to show the world that he's standing up against this military might. And all the figures that you mentioned there, or part of them which you are coming to, they developed. And what I always like to say that you can't really have an underdog and an overdog all the time. Even the oppressed, Allah will give him the chance to stand up. And slowly, they moved from these small rockets to longer rockets. The range started to 32 kilometers. We know about the rockets which were fired into Ashkelon, which is outside the borders, and these caused a lot of confusion. They did not cause
not to interrupt you, Doctor, as well. Can these things really be called rockets?
They are, first of all, if you classify, there's a guided rocket and there's a non-guided rocket. These are not guided. They do not have heat penetrating or heat seeking equipment that they will go and hit a certain objective. They are rockets which can be accurate to within 100 meters.
Okay.
Very difficult to have anything more. But with the oppression and people struggling for existence, they developed this. Now, having a blockade from the sea, having blockade from all sides, they can only develop at a certain rate. But
Yes.
two new elements came in that in the area, and the area affects what's happening in Gaza. Israel went into Lebanon. Hezbollah started to resist. Hezbollah was using rockets of another caliber. It wasn't workshops
Yes.
that were doing. They were getting Iranian, basic Iranian. Maybe they were doing something, but basically Iranian. The Iranians were getting Chinese, so there was Chinese technology, Iranian technology, also through Syria. So the scale of the resistance or the attacks from Lebanon was another story.
Was much more strong as well.
No, but you see, this spills off to Palestine. I mean,
Yes.
to Gaza, especially to Gaza, that they will know, and there are people helping them. And slowly, this became more and more of a menace to Israel. Now, one thinks, okay, they've moved from very simple things, and I think the arrogance of the Israelis to start building on the borders. I mean, I remember at the beginning when Israel was founded, every house had a bunker, and every house had and every kibbutz, or whatever they called it, was a place where they could hide. The arrogance now, they're so sure that nobody will touch them that they're building on the borders, they're building houses full of glass, they're building everything on land which doesn't belong to them, and they assume that they can terrify everybody, and nobody can even touch them with a finger.
Yes.
And this is the fallacy, see?
Yes.
So as soon as these rockets started flying in, whether the ones that just landed in the border or the ones that now increasingly touch Haifa on the seaside or even further in, it's chaos.
Yes.
It's chaos. They've been taught that they are protected to the extent that nobody can even say hello to them.
Yes.
It's not allowed. You cannot touch. These are the untouchables. You know, if you look at some of the peoples of the world, they call them the untouchables. These are that. So of course, they put themselves in a situation that they are very vulnerable.
Yes.
With all the might that we talked about, the normal citizen there puts his finger in the face of the Israeli army and says, "All this, and you're not defending me. All this, and my house is being bombarded.
Yes.
All this, and my neighbor has been killed." Maybe there are only less than 10 who have been injured or anything, but they've become so sensitive and it's so taboo that they have put this halo. Now, from this we move towards again trying to take an angle. What is Israel trying to do?
Okay, Doctor,
Yes.
we will answer that question
Yes, please go ahead,
after we take a short break,
Okay.
inshallah.
Pleasure.
Stay tuned for more on Gaza Massacre.
Now reaching every corner of the world, watch Huda via live streaming on www.huda.tv. The world of Islam at your fingertips. Huda, a light in every home.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. You're watching Gaza Massacre. We were talking just before the break. I mean, in the very beginning they were using airstrikes, naval strikes, but why the ground incursion? What's behind this?
Yes. Well, there are the official reasons that are given, the political reasons, saying that rockets out of Gaza are attacking settlements, etc., etc. But if you look at the magnitude of it, it does not warrant an incursion of this size. Now, we believe those who are trying to think clearly in the midst of this chaos and this very unhappy situation. What the Israelis are trying to do, the production of such rockets, we've said there's the local production and there's what seeps in from the outside, whether with Iranian or with Syrian or with Chinese or whatever it is, technology. They are trying to move in a number of axes and really find out where every single workshop is.
Yes.
And this is not easy because workshops in Gaza are mechanical workshops.
Yes.
They make pots and pans, they make all sorts of things, and they make parts of these rockets on the side. And they are not, it's not a standing factory. It's not
yes.
sign on it saying this is what we call staircase
yes.
workshop.
They're homemade.
Homemade, yes. You see, so they hope by going in and using all these systems, which we see the United States Army using them in Iraq in night fighting, identifying things, try and eliminate every single workshop facility.
Yes.
Now, I think this is a rather crazy idea because, I mean, any country, any area like Gaza needs its utensils, it needs its pots and pans, it needs its spoons, it needs its daily
yes.
things. So to think that you can really cancel out any mechanical working activity, I think is a bit too
naive.
It's a bit naive. I mean, sooner or later these people have to live, they have to produce something to sell, and people have got a very strong nationalistic
yes.
feeling. There are stories that have been printed about people who have left their jobs to go into these workshops, giving they believe that they will be rewarded in the afterlife by doing something which can protect them against all this hardship. And even if they all do all this, things are going to come from outside.
Yes.
Maybe not from the Egyptian border, but even with the blockade,
yes.
the sea blockade, there will be smuggling of equipment. And it will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and in more range and more effective.
Yes.
Now, the other things that you mentioned in your presentation, all these very special and prohibited let's say arms,
yes.
like atomic uranium, all this. Now, don't forget, this is a very congested area.
Yes.
And there are troops going in. So I don't quite understand. They might have been useful at the bombardment, but the bombardment everywhere in the world, people are against this bombardment.
Yes. What about their using of uranium? The dime bombs, the white phosphorus.
Yes.
The uranium and the white phosphorus are against,
they are against
international law, the Geneva Convention and everything.
Correct, correct.
And it's not the first time they use it as well. It's reports they were using it in Lebanon as well.
It's true. But do you think now, maybe it could have been used at the beginning when they were outside and bombarding. They could, but don't forget the uproar, the international uproar. I mean, every single country in the world has got people marching in the streets against this with a normal conventional bombing. Suppose it was something with uranium based, what will be the public? I mean, they don't care very much for the public opinion, but it would be difficult. It would be difficult for them to get away with using such things. And now they have their tanks in and their troops in. Who are you going to throw these things at? For sure they are going to be. I mean, we are not experts. We are just thinkers, analyzing things. But I think that many of these plus points in a conventional war might not be plus points in this kind of a war.
Yes, yes. But for Israel, with all the military might, compared to, we were just discussing how weak the resistance is in Palestine. How is the world justifying such an aggression between two parties which are beyond comparison?
There are interested parties. Don't forget that, to be quite honest, inside Gaza there are two semi-governments. Maybe one is sitting and watching his opponent losing ground. It could be that. there are different players, and you don't know which player has what.
Yes.
It's not a straightforward Gaza versus
Yes.
so and so.
Yes.
There are many other things which I think is not room for this program, nor do I think I'm competent enough to talk about it.
Let's look at Israel
Yeah.
and its position in the Middle East.
Yes.
I mean, no one has really spoken, they've spoken, but no one has taken any action against Israel and their brutal actions on the Palestinian people. Is this Israel showing the Middle East and the Arab world of their military might, meaning don't mess with us? Are they telling them this?
It is possible that this is a message also there, but I don't think this is what prompted what happened. What happened is that people who were given land and given houses and told, now you're in a safe Israel and don't worry about all this mess outside, now are being touched.
Yes.
And they're being touched, and they're being so spoilt that they're asking for complete and utter production. And any government that has to survive, don't forget politics again a little bit, have to survive inside, has to guarantee for the normal Israeli a nice, quiet life, better than the one he left in the United States. So this is the power of the man who's making the noise. And that's why, especially with elections coming up, and I'm sorry to bring elections coming up, he who does not respond to their, let's say, meek cries will lose in the future.
Dr. Yusuf Mazhar, thank you very much for being with us here on Gaza Massacre and to share your views. I'm sure that this is a new perspective that we have to look into and to understand what is really going on. Thank you very much for being with us here on Gaza Massacre. Well, we're running out of time once again, but our advice to the viewers is to read, try to understand what is behind the war. Try to understand who is Israel. Many of the Muslims are trusting what they see on television. It is not true. Just read. The internet is a tool that you can use to understand what really is going on. And don't forget your brothers in your du'as. Pray for them. And of course, the victory of Allah is promised to all the oppressed. And the du'as of the oppressed goes to Allah directly. So we ask all of you, and we ask ourselves not to forget our Palestinian brothers and for the lives they're giving up against a brutal enemy who hates Islam. Well, we hope that this program has enlightened you once again to re-empt yourself towards praying for those in the Gaza Strip. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah,